This is Jason Aspis with UPAA. I said I would take some questions on Twitter. We'll see how this goes. The first question was from Frank. What's the reasoning behind a break-in period? We've done a ton of research over the last year with our partners down at Pickle Pro Labs down in Florida. They're an independent lab. They contracted out University of Massachusetts at Lowell, the baseball research lab there, to do all of the research required to be able to understand the performance of pickleball paddles, but not just the paddles, the balls as well. There's a lot of dynamics between the two that need to be accounted for. The guys who wrote the ASTM, the standards for BB-Core, which is the ball bat coefficient of restitution, which is used widely in baseball. All the NCAA, all travel ball, for the most part, all high school uses BB-Core as their metric. So in pickleball, we're using what we call PEF, which is our version of BB-Core. It's using the base of the science from what they learned. And we went to the same people that wrote the baseball coefficient of restitution, ASTM. And so we feel, we're leveraging their experience in the world of baseball and softball and what they learned there, which took them over 12 years to get to a place that they felt was correct. All paddles break in. Let me get to the answer. All paddles break in. They all change over time. And more traditional paddles, sandwich construction, polypropylene honeycomb cores, when they start, typically they start as powerful as they will ever get, and over time they decrease in power. But some of these newer thermoformed foam edge paddles, we see them increase, what we call a break-in period. They break in and they get incredibly fast and hot and powerful. That needs to be accounted for. It's great that people are innovating. We love that. We want to see innovation in the space because it's going to improve the play experience. But if it's not checked, if we don't have processes in place to measure and enforce, then chaos would ensue, right? We're seeing it. Paddles should not behave the way that they're behaving in some instances. Certification for us, we have set up a program where we do break-in. So we do artificial break-in. We break paddles in on our own in the lab conditions to emulate real-world play and make sure that paddles never go over a certain threshold of power. For now, we have that threshold at 0.405. Is the number for break-in. A new paddle has to be under 0.385. And if either one of those metrics ever go over those numbers, then they're not going to get certified and they're not going to be in play at UPA events, particularly at the professional level, which is what we are managing. Professional level at the PPA and MLP. What happens at rec and amateur play, that's under USAP's purview. Next question from Lana Tomathis asking about testing pro paddles. What round do you start testing pro paddles? So in a progressive draw, the round of 32, in a traditional format where everything's played on one day, then everything in the main draw gets tested. Everything is spelled out on our website. We have a paddle rulebook. You can find that at upaa.unitedpickleball.com and go to governance and then paddle rules, and everything is in there. There's also a link over to Pickle Pro Labs, and there you can find all the white papers, so all the kind of theory around paddles, as well as all of our standards and operating procedures. Everything's spelled out. So go there if you're interested to learn more. I highly encourage it. They've done a great job of posting it all, so complete transparency. The other question was about challenges. Yes, the challenge rules have been implemented for this year. We really put the onus on the players themselves to understand their paddles. If they think something's wrong, they are obligated to remove it from play. If their opponent thinks something's kind of fishy or out of spec with their paddle, they can challenge it. If the player that's being challenged chooses to continue to play with it, then it becomes an official challenge. The challenger will be fined $1,000 if they are incorrect. And that is to prevent people from using this as a weapon, right? We don't want people to be challenging things all the time and taking paddles out of players' hands. So they have to mean it. If they really believe there's something wrong, the player who is in question also has the ability just to put it away. No questions asked, pull out another paddle, they're good to go. If they have been challenged, we confiscate that paddle either at that moment or at the end of the match, and it will go back to the lab and be tested. If it is out of spec, they will be fined a minimum of $2,500, depending on if it is the manufacturer's error or the player having done something, but someone will be held accountable, and it will all be done very transparently. Everything is, once again, in that document, the paddle rules document, and it is all spelled out there. That is it is part of Rule 12. And so you'll see the whole chain of command and chain of custody of how that gets laid out. Performance Rich asks, why paddle manufacturers have to pay $20,000 for the certification process? Fair question. It's not what it costs. I'd say it's what it costs. It's not what it costs. It costs a lot more. We've spent millions of dollars investing in both the science and the people, the engineers, and the equipment. We've made equipment from scratch that is made specifically for testing pickleball paddles. We also stood up an entire lab, hired the staff. So we're not going to recoup our investment with $20,000 per paddle company. We also only expect to have probably 30 or so paddle companies participate. When you invest millions and then you do the math on that, it's not going to add up. But that's okay. We're not trying to make money on this. We're trying to create a fair and level playing field for the professionals playing pickleball under the UPA umbrella. So we think that we're accomplishing that, and we're excited about where it's heading, and we're going to learn a ton. We're going to continue to do research, and I think that's going to be good for the wider sport ultimately. Christopher Crouch asks, have you looked into comparing data of the way the game is played with new age foam paddles versus more traditional paddles? Yeah, we do a lot of work in surveys after events, understanding audience numbers and viewership, sentiment. We're constantly keeping our finger on the pulse of how the game is being played, what works best. We're trying to create the optimum experience for pickleball, both for the players and for the fans. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be fair. We want it to be competitive. And so we're constantly trying to figure out what that right speed is and encourage not just a single type of shot, but an array of shots. That's what this game is. It's the idea that any strategy can work against another, right? And we don't want it to become a monolithic type game where it's just drive, power, power, power. We want to be able to reward resets and dinks and drops in and amongst drives. Sometimes power will prevail, but it shouldn't be the dominant force. So that's what we're trying to kind of protect the integrity in the nuance of the game. Next question from Lee Stoneham asks if you think he writes USPA. USAP's process and methods are inferior. Why aren't UPA standards governing amateur events as well? Yeah, not our job, quite honestly. We do think that our testing is superior. And back to the point that I was saying, one, ball dynamics are incredibly important. The science that goes into taking this from the baseball ASTM to making it for pickleball is quite difficult. And we've spent a lot of time on the engineering front, making sure that everything is accounted for. Bats are different than paddles. Baseballs are different than pickleballs, and that needs to be accounted for in the science. We're able to replicate our tests, even the ball we use, all that stuff is working for us, and we believe that we are on the right track. But we're not in the business of trying to govern amateur play. So that's it for now. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll do this again. If you want to hit me up, I'm at Spus44 on Twitter or X, and see you later.